All right, greetings everybody. First off, we're going to get right into this video with kind of an amendment of today. And when I literally recorded the video yesterday, the news website has kind of been fixed. I say kind of because it actually isn't fully updated yet. So it kind of lurched to life and died again. And if you don't believe me, well, just check this. Yeah, there's extra news in the game that's not on the website. I don't know, I talk about it and it kind of fixed itself. So hopefully in making this video, I will once again perform witchcraft and fix this. But that's not why we're here today. Today we are here to talk about characters over the next 3 to 4 months on global. Barring any global exclusive, this is what I think are generally sort of a tier recommendation list for most players, with the caveat being that if you have a specific element, then fly free, my friend. But this is for people who really don't know what to pull with, and I'm partially going to make that not be very helpful at the beginning of this, because I'm going to say preemptively that of all the characters that have come out on JP since where global is right now, Sephiroth, Yuffie, Rizzle, I think Xmas Reviz, did she come out? But I don't think she got her full upgrades, if I'm correct. Edward, Alphonse, Wingstern, Roy, King Bradley, Reagan, Veiga, Valentine, Miranda, Kefka, and Dialdo. Out of all of these characters, I think all of these are good in their own right and in their own element and in teams. That none of these are particularly bad characters, but I'm going to say this: none of them are as long-term impactful as I kind of thought they had been. And this is a good thing, dear listener, and a bad thing, because it's good. It's good that these characters, depending on the map, depending on the layout, can have win cases and loss cases, because it means that barely somehow we've kind of reached a little bit of balance, provided you're not an uber whale and can just whale the stats out the hell out of all of these characters. So forgetting the reincarnation system's injustices between free to play and pay to win, which characters are the best overall recommendations from me? Well, first off, I want to say that my 4 highest recommendation characters out of all of these are Sephiroth, Wingstern, King Bradley, and Kefka. And I'll explain all of those in brief. Sephiroth is just probably going to be the most common character, and therefore, just like Black Witch Helena for a lot of new players and new-ish players, this is the character to go for, because the Dark Element is incredibly easy to build, really good, and if there was one limited character that I think will benefit you in PvE and PvP the most, this is probably it, because he's the one that's just become the most common on JP, and I would expect the same thing to happen with Global. Doesn't really matter in PvP if he loses out a little bit more to Light because of Sylvie, or whatever, Esther, or however those units are focused and on the lights, whichever one's the light unit. It doesn't really matter. You just choose a different element to fight against, and Sephiroth is good against multiple different elements. So yes, Sephiroth is really good over the long period of time. I don't think he's been absolutely oppressive the longer it goes on, as more characters have been kind of, some win, some lose sometimes, and sometimes it just matters about setup. So that's encouraging to say that Sephiroth has become a little bit more long-term balanced on JP than I think he initially came out as. Attacking it next, Wingstern. Wingstern is a unit I think has excelled over time. People who know how to use him really well. He can be very, very threatening, and Light has a lot of good stuff with Engelbert and whatnot. So Wingstern also is a permanent character that you can farm his shards for, which makes him a easier recommendation. He's very strong, and yeah, not too much else to say. Think very positive. King Bradley is another limited type of Sephiroth deal, but not anywhere near as common as Sephiroth has been on JP, which is why I'm not recommending him super well. And if we're talking about just PvE and PvP farm potential, as well as, just arena and PvP, I think that King Bradley is a little more PvP focused, where Sephiroth is just a little bit more everything focused, and you can decide how you want to do with that. But if you're an Earth person, like an Earth character fan, then yeah, King Bradley is probably going to be a must. But everyone else, it depends where you feel, right? Kefka is my last really recommended character because Kefka's status effects do gum up the works in a pretty reliable way, and definitely not for everyone, because this is the most expensive, I think, of all the builds, because you probably want to be running Roy as well as Swimsuit Helena, and maybe, you're cheaping out with a UR Stern a bit, or Regalia Glassy, but Kefka is pretty good support in a status effect kind of way, and that makes him good, at least for the moment that I'm recording this video. Now, does that mean these other characters are crap? No, not even. I mean, a 90 cost character that you can get easier is probably better than a 100 cost character that you have to go to pity on. So yes, Global has the advantage of foresight, but the only character I'm going to say I think has probably valued the most is Yuffie, because so many characters seem like they have good accuracy now, and not only good accuracy, but also just pretty good damage dealing. I think Yuffie's probably aged the worst out of most of the characters that you see on this list that are upcoming on Global, but I'm going to say this. Rizel, I haven't seen too much of her ever since all of the initial stuff went for her, because Rizel is sort of, how do I say this? She kind of got replaced by all the old characters, because the old characters were perfectly well already. And she's not a bad character. It's just that people already went, well, I already have these characters ready, so I'll just keep using them. And that's kind of the same for Edward, with at least in terms of wind. The one thing where I'll say is that Edward does feel maybe a little more represented than Rizel from what I've seen, mainly because he can do strike related teams. But anyway, Veiga and Alphonse. Alphonse is the much more important character for lightning than Veiga is. Not many people seem to have been really adopted Veiga, because most people wanted to just keep doing thunder magic, because again, Skahal, that team's already set, just like wind, so why replace it with something new? Veiga is very good, but very good sometimes won't push people over the edge. If you want to do physical, then you'll probably want to do both of these characters, but if you're just generally looking for a new addition to your lightning team, Alphonse will probably do well until lightning gets her upgrade. Anyway, as for Earth, King Bradley is the far more important one, but Dialdo is pretty good. It's just so far on JP, since he's the least long out of everyone that I'm talking about today, he's kind of hard to say whether he's really going to make a huge impact. But he seems to have a good kit for the most part, but some questionable parts in his design. Definitely some weaknesses there. Miranda for light is good, and 70 cost unit obviously has its advantages. Wingstern is just far more important, and if you're a light person, Wingstern is probably one that you should just get. As for Roy, well, I've already talked about it. Roy is just essentially with Kefka, but incredibly expensive, because you need Kefka, you need some limited cost VCs, you need Roy, so it gets really expensive if you're going down the fire magic route. And Reagan versus Reviz, but I think Reviz is just missing an upgrade. Reagan is just a really, really, really strong character for Ice. He's insanely good, since he can not only beat wind teams, but also ice teams too. He's very, very capable and a very good character. I haven't seen him that much, mainly because Velis as well as Alaya are already so top And so again, if you already have Snow, Reagan might feel a little bit expensive, but this is a non-limited time character that you can farm shards for. Again, huge advantage just there. It's just, I think JP, from the time that Sephiroth came out, I feel like JP, especially after FMA, most people are feeling pretty tapped out right now in terms of reincarnation stuff, in terms of just general resources to do polls with, in terms of raising characters. All of this stuff is just way, way, way too much. And it does feel like Sephiroth is the most represented because he just came so early around the 3rd anniversary. And other than some like FMA stuff, most of these characters I haven't seen too terribly much. It feels like like Yaldo, Viga, and Rizzle all popped up. I honestly think that JP's next big overly popular character will be Wotv, because she's just been teased for so long now that, and again, Sephiroth is very popular, and I think Wotv will be incredibly powerful. But if you're really looking at this list, I think the big takeaway is you can go in a lot of different directions and just focus on specifically maybe 2 or 3 elements out of all the stuff that's represented over the next little while, and be pretty happy with most directions you go. A lot of teams are very, very capable, provided you have them set up properly, and can win matches and lose matches, depending on sometimes just how it goes, sort of thing, right? I think that's encouraging, and I'm going to leave the video by saying this before we go too overboard, of that I think it's positive to say this. Some people will be like, well, Umbra, I wanted a clear answer. Well, get Sephiroth or King Bradley or Wing Stern. They're probably your best bet right now. But for people who are like maybe a little more patient, or patient's a bad word, but like open to the idea, is just that it's really positive to see that there are a lot of different strategies that are kind of going, and that nothing feels incredibly oppressive right now. Like Evasion has its good matchups because of Fire and Kefka, but you know, Lightning Skull still works. Regular Wind with Joom still works. There's a lot of different things you can do with a lot of different elements right now, and I think you'll find success in all of them, provided that you pick a very limited number of stuff, because when it comes right down to it, the biggest limiting factor probably in the future for Global, because it's still a limiting factor for JP, is the 140 system, where you know you can only do so much, you can only reincarnate so many characters, and that means that it is your best really to choose kind of maybe your 3 favorite elements for the next little while. I know that kind of sounds like I'm saying, oh, abandon the other elements, but trust me, consolidation and specialization is going to be a much bigger asset to the reincarnation system. And I'll repeat this again in a specific reincarnation video that I will be making very soon. But anyway, I have to go stream, so thank you so much for watching. This video will probably be up in a few hours, and see you next time.